Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Fearless and Free TV. I have an amazing guest here with me this morning. I'm so excited when I get people into the studio. But, it's always fun to have people on camera too. But in the studio, it's really, really fun because we get to feed off each other's energy. So this is my second interview for the day, and I've been having amazing conversations all morning. And I've had 2 cups of Hempworks coffee, so I am very awake. Let's just put it that way. Cynthia, I've been talking her ear off. I realized a minute ago that I haven't let you add much of a word in edgewise because when I have coffee,
I like to hear you talk. I love what comes out of your mouth.
I do. Thank you. That's so sweet.
I do.
Yeah, apparently when I have a lot of coffee, I turn into a chatterbox. I promise I'll let you talk. So I'm super, super excited to introduce you to my guest today, Cynthia Jordan. I have a fun little story about Cynthia. So a couple of years ago, I was working on a documentary film called Pearl. And my co-creator and I were talking about homelessness in Los Angeles, which everyone knows is a real issue and has gotten even worse since COVID. And we will find a solution to those issues. So we were working on this documentary called Pearl, and someone else who knew us said, "Oh, I know someone who is a filmmaker, a musician, and she can create some great music for your show." So this friend by email introduced you to me. And you sent me this email that said, "Hey, what a coincidence that you're working on this movie called Pearl, and I'm working on this play and a book called Pearl." And it was kind of one of those. So I like to say that synchronicity is the magic of the universe.
Absolutely.
So it's one of those magical moments.
Absolutely.
And then something even more magical happened. You said, "I'm going to be in Redondo Beach in a couple of weeks. Do you want to meet up?" So I met you at a coffee shop, and you said, "I grew up just a couple of blocks from where you live." So it was just one of those other really amazing experiences of, here's this new friend of mine who we know we're sisters. We know that now. That she was born and raised literally 10 blocks from where I've been living for the last 25 years.
Yes.
And we just met and we hit it off, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And look, she's back in Redondo Beach again.
Yes. Yes. But now we know why we connected in the first place.
Because we're sisters.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we felt that, but I think now we have a sense of purpose, together, because the more that you get in the same consciousness and the same goals, which is healing the planet, then the more of us that get together and do that with the way, our conversations go. I love your shows. I love what you're doing, everything. And when you popped up on my screen again, I saw you on Charlie Ward. I went, "Oh, Victoria, oh my gosh." And I texted you and you got back with me. And ever since then, I've just been, because in our conversations, I knew that you were completely awake, and had like a complete connection to source. And you were able to know things. I've completely felt that. And I just thought, man, whatever she's doing, I want to help, or whatever I can do to participate, because you're the real deal. You're the real deal, Victoria. You are.
Thank you. So I have to tell you that when you were talking about us getting together, Spirit talks to me through song all the time. I know you too. I know that you get those messages all the time.
Right.
But his song I was hearing is this. You love this. The more we get together. The more we get together, the happier we'll be.
Because
your friend is my friend, and my friend is your friend. The more we get together, the happier we'll be.
Now you're talking my language.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, that actually is where we are on the planet right now. Yes. We are being asked to get together.
Yes.
We're not playing follow the leader anymore. No. We are playing get together.
Yes. We are.
And what a fun and amazing place we get to be in when we get to get together on this. This is all
Yes.
about all of us coming together, bringing our resources together, bringing our ideas together,
Yes.
bringing our skills together, bringing our passions together,
Yes.
and actually creating the world we want to live in from our heart space.
Yes.
And follow the leaders, part of the old fear-based paradigm of expecting somebody else to create it for us.
Yes.
Human beings are creators.
Yes. Yes, we are.
That is how we are made in the image and likeness of Source.
Oh, and don't you just love what's happening right now? Because I always knew that we would eventually evolve from fight, flight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because wars just don't work. It's a dinosaur idea. It's stupid, and they don't work. Too many people get hurt. And I knew that at one point, people would start really remembering who they are and saying, this is stupid. We're not going to do war anymore. And we would evolve into our spiritual awakening. What I didn't know is that the Genesis was going to happen in my lifetime, our lifetime. I didn't know that because my plan was to come right back and see if it would, when it does happen, right? So we're watching the genesis of this amazing awakening that's happening throughout the whole planet, because everyone is going to love, which really comes back to us, doesn't it? Love. Wait, I am love.
Love makes the whole world go round.
Love makes the world go round, right? You do come in song, but love, we are love. That's our true essence, is love. And now that we're seeing that, because we're feeling it, we're saying that's not what I am. This is what I am.
Yeah.
And this is what you are. And when we find each other, then it's happening more and more and more. The light just gets brighter and brighter and brighter.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I am too.
It's so exciting.
So excited.
So exciting.
Yeah, and I just keep reminding people, and this was a huge part. So my spiritual awakening took place about 10 years ago when I started to understand what love really is.
Right.
Love isn't an emotion; it's actually the energy that all things are created, and that each of us is actually love experiencing human form.
Yes, exactly.
So when we remember that we are actually love embodied, and we start to make hard to believe, I am love.
I am love.
I am love. God is love. Like that's it. That is all that is.
That's it.
Right.
It's everything.
It is everything. So, you know, my son told me this when he was, I don't know how old he was. He was quite small. And he said, Mommy, love is like the glue that binds people together. I love little kids because they say the most profound things. And I said, oh my gosh, you're right.
Yes.
That is it.
Yes. He was how old?
I don't know, maybe 7 or 8.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty young.
Because when they're young, they, I always say if a baby could talk, they would blow us away because they just came from God.
Right.
And they know they're God, and they know that they're that essence, that they know that, and they're acclimating to the human experience.
Yeah.
And everybody is born into a different story. Your story is different than my story. Some of them, you had your challenges early. My challenges came later. But we each have a story. And it's so wonderful when you know who you are and you learn who you are and you find that that's what you were all the time. I've always said we're born with this bright, bright light, the light of love, the light of God. And then as we start progressing, get a little bit older, these little shutters start going up, right? These little shutters kind of go up, and then the shutters start coming back down. They don't all go up, but you see these little shutters, because the ego, we start comparing ourselves when we get into our flight fight mode, which is survival and trying to fit in the tribe and all that. You want friends in school. You don't want to be ostracized and all of that stuff. And then, we were talking earlier, Victoria, how I always say we were kind of on the right track back in the 60s when we were doing peace, love, war, no war. We were doing the songs and the poetry that came out during that time. And then everybody got mortgages. They got married, had kids, got mortgages, blah, 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 blah. And we kind of went off track, but I think we're coming back to that now. I listen to those songs all the time now, and with a different meaning and a different heart, because that's pure poetry, you know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of that music, I actually need to dig some of that back out again. I remember,
Man, I made a song
good
list.
songs.
I made a song list on Spotify. Love is but the song we sing, fear's the way we die. You can hear the mountains ring or hear the angels cry.
Okay, so for those who don't know who Cynthia is, Cynthia's songwriter.
I'm a songwriter. Right?
She's a songwriter and a performer. And I'm going to find her.
And I write books.
And she writes books.
And I love kids.
And see, then there she is. So,
oh, okay.
Right. So,
okay.
I didn't officially introduce you. This is Cynthia Jordan.
But my friends call me Cindy, so you can call me Cindy.
Cindy Jordan.
Right.
And she does have a claim to fame. It's okay if I tell them what your claim to fame is?
Okay. But, don't judge me.
No, this is a loving audience. They don't judge, right, people?
Don't judge me. I always tell people this.
Judgment is not allowed in my audience.
I wrote a song about drinking too much tequila and waking up next to a cowboy that I didn't know who it was. So I always say, don't judge me by that.
But you won a bunch of awards for that. And...
I did. It was actually Country Music Song of the Year. And it goes, Jose Cuervo, you are a friend of mine. I like to drink you with a little salt and lime. Did I kiss all the cowboys? Did I shoot out the lights? Did I dance on the bar? Did I start any fights? And then the next verse is, now wait a minute, things don't look too familiar. Who's this cowboy sleeping beside me? He's awfully cute, but how'd I get his shirt on? I think that was the killer verse that went, no. It was so funny, Victoria. After that, I moved to, what happens if you write a song like that? I met a cowboy, handsome, blue-eyed cowboy. So he moved me from Redondo Beach to Texas, and I was out in the wide open spaces, and that's where I woke up, was in this beautiful ranch, this horse ranch that we had, and we had 2 children, and I started writing songs for children and started a ministry called Kids for Kids out there. And I learned a lot from the children. That's when children will teach you, like you were talking about your son, children, they know. And so, but one of the grandmothers said, I don't understand how a woman who writes songs about tequila can write songs about Jesus. She was right. So that's when I started understanding, that we all have these different personalities. I said, CJ wrote the tequila song. I'm Miss Cindy. I wrote the songs about Jesus. and then I went to my higher self, right? I said, Cynthia, she is the awakened one. She is the light. She's all that is good. CJ is my little warrior princess. And she can cuss like a sailor.
She's got a little bit rebellious, isn't she?
Yeah. But she was the one, this little grandmother, that taught me about judgment. And that's why I always say that, don't judge me from my song, right? Because of this little grandmother who had said that. It's interesting how we make judgments on people, and no. We're all one. And so when we do make those judgments, we have to, it's like holding up a mirror. Okay, what is it that's really bothering me? What? Because this person's just being themselves. Why is it hitting me so hard?
Right.
And then we have to go in reflection of our own self, our own lives, and our own understandings. And that's where, so judgment has its purpose. Because you're really not judging them, you're judging yourself,
right.
And your ego, So
yeah.
So she taught. I loved that she taught me that.
That is what a lot of us in the spiritual community call projections of self-judgment.
See, I love the way you talk. I love the stuff that comes out of your mouth, like that thing that you did with Charlie the other day.
Oh, with money and
Yeah, say it. Say it.
money in the hands of love can change the world.
I love that. I love that. That should be on bumper stickers, billboards. Money in the hands of love. Gosh, I just love the stuff that comes out of your mouth.
Thank you.
I do.
Thank you. I love the stuff that comes out of yours too.
Oh,
I love your music. I have 2 of your CDs in my car. I play them all the time.
oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you wrote that Christmas one. I played the Christmas one.
Aw.
The last 2 Christmases.
Oh, okay.
And then you have another one that you gave me that it's not Gaelic. What is it?
the Celtic.
The
Journal.
Celtic one.
Yeah.
Oh, so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, your music is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's Cynthia's music.
That's Cynthia. She does that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really love Cynthia. One day I want to be just like her. The Cindy person kind of, I had a manager in Nashville, and it was so funny because I would tell him about CJ wrote tequila songs, and Cynthia writes the beautiful piano music, and Miss Cindy writes the children's. And so he said, I had to label them all, right? Because it comes from a different part of my spirit and my mind, because everything comes through the mind, it filters through the mind.
Mm-hmm.
But so the filter would change, right? And he was saying, I need to ask you to make a decision. I want all y'all to get together and then send out a representative.
I love that.
But we are, Victoria. We're a brother, we're a sister, we're a wife, we're a mother, we're a friend. And then with me, I have all of these. I write books, so everything is different, and it just helps me keep track of myself. I call it controlling my natural schizophrenia because it helps me keep track of myself. And I have to forgive CJ because, like I said, once in a while, she's my little warrior.
That's okay.
But
She's a little spunky.
Yeah, but when you're in a flight-fight environment, which we are, and some, those that are not awake and are judgmental and you need to pull her out once in a while, right?
Yeah. So those are what some of us call aspects of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So I laugh. I got this visual from a friend of mine. Ooh, another person named Cynthia.
Oh, good.
Cynthia Lamb. I had her on a few weeks ago. She was.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she's the one that taught me about this visual of having all of my aspects in the bus. So I picture like a school bus. So I have this yellow school bus.
Uh-huh.
I have all of my aspects in the bus.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes there have been times when they've gotten kind of rowdy and they fight amongst each other on the bus.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And then I had one aspect of myself that kept trying to take the steering wheel away from me and drive the bus. And I'm like, no, let me drive the bus. If you all just sit back and relax, let Victoria drive the bus,
Yes.
we'll all be fine.
I love the name Victoria.
I'll give you all a job.
Victorious. I have a girlfriend, and she will not let you call her Vicky. She is Victoria, the victorious, right?
Yeah.
I love that. What a great name for you.
And well, it's a chosen name.
Oh, good.
So again, my birth name is Margaret.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So's my mother. She's Margarita.
Yeah. So my birth name was Margaret. I started using the name Victoria in 2011.
No kidding.
As a pseudonym, as an author pseudonym. And
No
a stage name.
Well, yeah.
Pseudonym, yeah.
No kidding.
And it's actually my higher self name.
Yes.
And so a lot of people, I chose to start using the name Victoria, knowing who this Victoria energy entity was.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband told me that I wasn't allowed to tell anybody. So, but he's not my husband anymore. So.
Oh, yeah, well, that happens.
Well, he's almost not my husband, and we're actually still in the middle of a divorce. But I legally changed my name to Victoria a couple of years ago.
Did you?
I did.
Oh.
And the impetus was that because so many people have avatars and pseudonyms now, that the Homeland Security no longer doesn't allow people to use pseudonyms for things like banking and business contracts the way they used to.
Okay.
So, and it hit me one day when I went to cash a check of mine and the bank wouldn't cash it anymore.
Oh.
They said, well, we can't, either you need to have the check written out in your legal name or you need to change your name.
Right.
So I decided it was time to take legal ownership
Oh,
of my name. So, and I'm like that. I am very, very much a stickler for it. My name is not Vicky. Oh no, my name is Victoria.
Right. Right.
You can call me V, which I love because the V is a symbol for the divine feminine.
You're right. You're right. The V.
The V. So you can call me V or you can call me Victoria, but I am not Vicky.
Oh, that's good.
So now what? We got off talking about me again, and this isn't about me. This is about you.
Well, I am you. You are me, and that's why that happens. No, honestly, because we're in the same vibe. We've been sitting having coffee, and we're in the same exact vibe, and all we're doing is playing ping pong, exchanging the same ideas.
Oh, that's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Okay, let's do it.
So Cynthia, she's also an author, an amazing songwriter, obviously, and musician, also an author. And she wrote this book called Pearl. She's writing a play about Pearl.
It's a musical.
A musical about Pearl.
It's
who happens to have a character named Victoria, which I think is really cool.
Victoria Pearl. Her name's Victoria Pearl. I brought you the book. Yeah.
The book.
Okay, the book.
There's the book.
Pearl.
But what's cool about this, and I knew nothing about, but I labeled this show as the real Wild Wild West.
Right.
So you've done tons of information about the real Wild Wild West.
I've got great information.
So tell them
the great
not the censored story of his story, not the Hollywood story. The real story. So let's tell them the truth.
The truth. Okay. Well, first of all, I moved to this town in the middle of nowhere, Texas. Okay. It is the largest city in America, not close to an interstate, which I think they're putting one through now, but it has been 100,000 people in the middle of West Texas. And I said, okay, God, I know you put me here for a reason. I just need to figure out what that is. Because every time I moved, I changed my genre of music. So when I went to East Texas, it was for the children. And then when I went to Nashville, I got a record deal and did 11 CDs for Page Music, which was, I'm classically trained. So it was all, easy listening, meditation. And then I moved to San Angelo, Texas, and said, what am I doing here? Right. And so I'd done 2 projects. One's about the Lady in Blue, and that's another story we'll talk about another time. But there are 2 tourist attractions in San Angelo, Texas. One is the Fort Concho, which was built right after the Civil War to protect the people that were heading west in wagon trains, that type of thing. And the other is Miss Hattie's. Miss Hattie's, you can go upstairs and see Miss Hattie's bordello.
You see her bedroom?
You can see all of them.
Wow.
There's all these different bedrooms. It's a bordello. And so one day, I've been doing all this classical music, beautiful music, spiritual music. And one day I was thinking, you know what? Back in those days when I was doing Jose Cuervo, that was fun. I think I want to do fun again, right? And so I had been playing music at Miss Hattie's. There was a restaurant there, and they had an upright piano. And I bought myself a saloon outfit, and I started singing old songs from my grandmother used to sing those songs. In fact, she played here in Redondo at a place called Pat's and at the Eagles Club. And she was a honky tonk piano player. So I'd play the songs that she used to play and did all this. And then I started writing some fun songs. And one day, oh man, this was something. And just having fun, And one day I was, how that place, I think they call it alpha. When you just wake up and your mind hasn't started working yet and you're headed towards the coffee pot. Remember that? That place? You don't have really any thoughts yet, right? And I had gotten up and I had kind of heard, when they talk to you from the other side, you get little glimpses, right? And then when they know you can hear them, then they get really excited and their voices get louder and louder and louder, right? So what I'd heard a little bit was we weren't bad people. We weren't bad people. I kept kind of hearing that. And so I got my coffee and I didn't want to break it because I could hear them, because I could feel that they were getting more and more excited because they could. It's like she can hear us, right?
Right.
So I'm listening and tell them why we did it. We weren't bad people. Tell them why we did it. We weren't bad people. And by the time I got to the piano, I had, if you could wear my slippers for just one day, you'd understand why I'm nice to the men and I make my living this way. And I had, that was written. Right.
Wow.
And then I said, so I had that. And then I said, tell me why you did it. And from my left side, I heard I was a widow and I had a child that I needed to raise. Because we have to remember, in those days, if you didn't have a man or family taking care of you. Okay, so she said that. And then behind me, I heard, I'm an orphan. And to the right of me, I heard, I'm too ashamed to go home. I ran away with this man. I'm soiled. And I'm too ashamed to go home. I was too ashamed to go home. So I had Annabelle, Redbird, and Betsy. And I started with those 3 girls. And I ended up with 10. Because what happened was, I learned what was happening was that each of these girls that came to work at Miss Pearl's parlor had a story, had a backstory. And every one of those stories was represented by thousands and thousands of women. The widow, the orphan, the soiled, the mistress.
Right.
All of these stories. And they all accumulated. So the first part of the book is all about Victoria Pearl and her story and how she ended up.
She's the matron for the.
Yes, she's the matron. And basically what happened was, I got a hold of a book called Welcome to My Parlor, Come Into My Parlor. And it was about these 2 sisters that made millions of dollars. In Chicago, they had what they called the Everleigh House. And it was a place where you had to be somebody. These women were so brilliant. They had gone to the expo in Nebraska, and they were from the South. And they went to they had left their husbands because their husbands were abusive. One of them tells a story that the night of her marriage, her husband put his hands around her neck and said, "This is to let you know who's in charge," and started squeezing her neck. And so she and her sister, they decided they were going to leave these guys. 2 sisters married 2 brothers, and they decided, no. Right? And so they got with a company of actresses and entertainment, and they got on the train and traveled with them. Well, they had been brought up with good breeding, and they were ladies, and they mingled in with the high society there in Nebraska during this expo. And they were just charming. They were from the South, and they just were so ladylike. And the men just fell in love with their accents, and and the women just went, "Arr." So they decided to have a tea, and nobody showed up at the tea. The women didn't show up. They were shunned. And they said, you know what? You might not be friendly to us, but your husbands will. Because they knew human nature.
Right.
They knew human nature. Did I say they knew human nature, which is what this book is all about, is human nature and ego, right? And so they charged $12 for a bottle of wine. So just remember
oh my gosh, that's a huge amount of money.
back then, right?
Yeah. I'm going to pay $12 for a bottle of wine now.
Yes, exactly. So basically, you multiply everything by like 30.
Yeah.
And that's no kidding. That's right. And so they got beautiful girls, and they entertained the gentlemen, and they started with $35,000, and they doubled their money by the end of the expo. So they had a model, beautiful women, beautiful gowns, wonderful food, expensive wine, and the men who are somebody, right? The men who drive the Ferraris, or, you know, the men who like to show off their money with each other would all show up there. So they were in business, and they decided to go through. They went to several places. They went to New Orleans. They went to Washington, and they found out that there was a woman in Chicago in that business who was selling out the House of Mirrors. It was called the House of Mirrors. And it was a mansion, and they went in there and refurbished the whole thing, made it beautiful. They had 12 rooms that were all themed. The blue room, the oriental room, the rose room, that type of thing, kind of like the Madonna Inn here, right? Okay. So everything was themed. The girls had to be beautiful. They had to be clean. They had to take lessons every day on etiquette. Because it was important that they were a lady, learned how to speak. Because gentlemen, in those days, there was a real quality, a high standard for gentlemen and ladies. Right. They had to be well read. They had to be up on current events, so they would be a good conversationalist. Thank you. Yeah, conversationalist. They were not allowed to just talk and then take them into a room or anything. The men had to take them to dinner, spend a lot of money in the dinner. But the thing that really hit me was their doctor would show up every week to check on the girls. And the doctor said, do not be intimate with your customers. I went, hold the door. This is a message we need for our young girls today. Don't be intimate, because you can get pregnant or a disease. And I went, hold the door. What? And these women made millions of dollars
just for the men to be seen,
to be
doted on,
and so it was a massage parlor, basically. You know, I'm sure the girls were creative. The end result was the end result, right? But what they didn't experience, the man didn't experience, was the conquest. Right. Because the girls, the girls were in charge of their pleasure. Does that make sense? And I went, hold the door. We need to hold our sovereignty as women, because when they feel they've got the conquest, right? But the men were intrigued. They were pampered by this gorgeous woman. They got to be seen by their peers. And what happened with that was they started seeing each other like out at work or something. And they would say, I'm going to go get ever laid tonight. Well, have you ever heard the term getting laid?
Yeah.
Well, that's where it started.
That's funny.
We're going to go get ever laid tonight. Are you going to be there? Yeah, I'm going to be there, that kind of thing. Another thing to understand was back in the olden days is when a woman was pregnant, you were not a gentleman if you wanted to be intimate with her. So, for 9 months, these guys So the ones with money, and they knew was clean. But I think what was the most important thing spiritually was that these women never felt that conquest. I mean, I'm sure they slipped up here and there, whatever, right? But they never felt the conquest of the man,
right?
Which,
they didn't give their body,
right? They were able to pleasure without all of that,
right?
And hold some of their mystery and their sovereignty, right? They were in charge of his pleasure.
And he technically wasn't committing adultery.
No,
right?
I never had sex with that woman.
Right. That's funny. But right, they could be married and they would go off and they would spend quality time with a beautiful woman who doted on their every whim. But they didn't technically have sex with her.
So in today's money, nobody walked out of there spending less than $5,000
a night.
Per night.
Wow.
A visit. And their really sisters were, because they were completely working off the male ego. Because when men, I remember a man who read my book, he said, what else you going to spend the money on, right?
Oh, good point.
Yeah. He said, you make all this money, what else you going to do? You know, you can go. And some of them were probably married, but and the conversation. You hear all the time from women, especially the high-classed girls that service gentlemen, that they'll say, a lot of times that doesn't even happen. It's more about the companionship. So men crave that companionship.
Right.
Women, so the point is we have this amazing power, this amazing, amazing power that we have. And we should only allow that, because sex should never be a conquest.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a mutual dance of love. So one thing that I say is, in the animal kingdom, we see that the males go after the females when they're in heat.
Mm-hmm.
Dolphins and humans are different. Men are always in heat. And so,
but they have to do a dance too, right?
And
they have to woo the woman.
But it's not necessarily important that they get the woman ready, and that it's the difference between a Big Mac and a 7-course meal. You need to be, there's so much joy and intimacy that you can have with a man that you love, and respects you and loves you. I mean, you can go into the outer space, right? You completely detach yourself spiritually from this earth when you have that kind of intimacy with a man, which is what Victoria had with her man. She met a man at the Everlake Club, and that's her backstory, right? And then the other thing to understand about these women was the integrity they had. That was not entrapment. And they would not go knock on anybody's door and say, guess where your husband was last night? There was a sense of trust with these women, and the women took care of each other. And the Everlake sisters, a lot of the girls were married that worked there. Yeah, they wanted their girls out of there. They didn't want them there. They would not, we're hearing all of this darkness happening now. It happened back then. What would happen? But in those days, if you were soiled, you had no value.
Right.
So men would have a coffee with a pretty girl and say, oh, you need, and take them to a place, or drug them. Mm-hmm. And then they would be gang raped. This was pretty, and they would be, and they'd wake up with just a gown on and say, well, you're soiled now. Mm-hmm. You have no value. You're ours now. You belong to us now. And that happened a lot. There were 500 brothels in Chicago. 500.
Wow.
When the Everlays were in business. but you had to be somebody, and you couldn't be fat. You couldn't smell bad. And one ugly word to any of those girls, you were kicked out and never allowed to come back. So you had to be a gentleman.
So it was a gentleman's club.
It was a gentleman's club.
A real gentleman's
You
club.
had
not
to
like
be
this.
somebody.
Yeah.
You had to be somebody. And I just thought, first of all, you know, okay, we're going to show this picture. You see that picture? There's something intriguing about this, right? Because I remember Charlie was talking to you about this girl who had been trafficked and how she first got in because she wanted the fame and the fortune and all of that. And then she learned that she was in a real bad place, right? And so that whole conquest thing, no. It's all about the tease. It's all about, I always say, you know, after they've sprung their sprung, you lose all control.
Right.
And if there's no love involved, right? You're like a piece of bubble gum that got stuck on the bedpost. You might get seconds, but probably not thirds. And this is a message that our girls need to know today is our sovereignty. So in the book, what happens is Emma Grace shows up. She's never been with a man. And her father's died. She has nowhere to go. And this man gives her a letter of introduction to Miss Pearl. And Miss Pearl feels her heart, you know, in her heart. She says, she's such a pretty girl. And she goes, yeah, I'll bet you he told you to come, you know, because Miss Pearl has opened her own parlor with the same model as the Everleighs. She was an Everleigh girl in the book.
Oh, okay.
So Pearl is fictitious, but the Everleigh girls, women are not. And so she shows up and and she says, well, can you cook, honey? She goes, I've never been with a man, but I can learn. And well, can you cook? She takes, you know, she says, yeah, I can cook. She says, well, you can come in. Mozella can use the help. And so Mozella is a woman who was, you know, she's a black maid at the Everleigh house, and they become great friends. And it shows the strength of the black woman in those times, right? Running everything. So this is what's happening here is Mozella runs everything, right? She's in charge of the whole house. And so she comes to Emma Grace. And that night, Tommy Lee, he's cowboy, all his cowboy friends. It's his birthday. It's first time with a woman, right? And so they fall in love. So this is a metaphor of two complete pure virgins that fall in love at a bordello. So there's the contrast.
Right.
So the book was really written to open dialogue between mothers and daughters and friends. And there's a lot of funny parts about it when Miss Comstock comes.
Yeah, we're not going to spill the beans.
Oh, yeah, we can't do that. But Miss Comstock says, my sister Dora May, she lives in Big Spring, Texas. She says that her Jimmy found the magic button. Yeah. And when he finds that magic button, she starts a screaming and a hollering, goosebumps all over her body, just like a coyote in the full moon above. Just like this. So that's in the book. And so it really addresses a lot of women's issues.
Right.
You know, Susan, the school teachers were not allowed to be married in the old days. They had other children to take care of. You can't have your own children because women take care of children. So school teachers, you've already got children.
Oh, so once they got married, they couldn't be school teachers anymore?
Well, they just weren't allowed to be married because...
Or they had to choose.
They had to, right. Yeah, have to. You've already got children to take care of. You know, because school teachers take care of the children type thing.
Oh, yeah, schoolmaid and school marm and stuff. That kind of became, okay.
So and then this poor gal, there's also that stigma, of that sex is bad. And
Mm-hmm.
so she comes to Miss Pearl and she says, Miss Pearl, is sex bad? Because I'm getting these feelings. She says, Pearl says, well, how old are you, honey? She says, I'm 28. Well, of course you're having these feelings. It's natural. So the book talks about how sex is natural, but it also needs to be respected. She says, right now, I've been looking at the buttocks parts of men, and sometimes I look at the front, and I'm a sinner, and I'm going to hell. So it addresses the stigmas. It really tries to focus on how beautiful and what a beautiful gift from God that we have in our bodies to share intimacy in the spirit of love. And that's what this whole thing's about. But there's, we've got human nature. There's parts that are sad that'll make you cry. There's parts that'll make you
I need
laugh.
a good book.
And yes,
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm even more excited to read it now.
Well, it's what happened though is, oh my God, Victoria, what would happen is I would sit there and I would fall. I might do it now because I felt so sad for these girls. And the pain that they went through, and I could hear them telling me their stories. Yeah. And it was so sad, and they were considered trash,
But a lot of them end up that way. I mean, because they basically already were considered that, or that was the only option. I try to explain to people all the time. Nobody grows up with the dream of, I'm going to grow up and be a stripper.
That's what Pearl says.
I'm going to grow up and
be a prostitute.
Nobody does that. The only girls who do that are girls who feel like they are damaged, and that is the only choice they have.
That's exactly right.
Nobody chooses that life.
No. And then we have this horrible stuff with trafficking, where like this Kathy O'Brien, I love her. Do you ever watch her, Kathy O'Brien? Oh God, she's wonderful. And she was rescued, and she talks about the MK Ultra that we were talking about, and how she and you need to find her and you need to interview her.
I'll get your name for her, because I want to interview those kinds of people too.
Kathy O'Brien. I'd love to find her and interview her, because write her down. C. Yeah, Kathy O'Brien. She is a survivor of the trafficking. She was rescued by this man, Mark Phillips, I think was his name. Okay. And she was being trafficked in Washington, D.C.
Oh my.
And she names names. Right. And she's been before Congress trying to. So what I'm trying to do, I'm still
no, but because you channeled them, you actually told you their stories. So you have a personal connection to them.
I would boo-hoo cry while I wrote this book. Boo-hoo cry, because I could feel their pain, and I could feel their lack of respect. But come on, girls, I'm so concerned with our young girls today. I mean, I heard a story that this woman told me. My daughter just started college, and she was in, wherever they all hang out. And some guy just came up and said, you want to go? They've got apps where they just go have sex with people. They don't even ask their name. They don't even buy them a cup of coffee. It's just this crazy culture that's going on rampant with our girls right now. And we need to bring the sovereignty back into self-respect, because it's different for a man than a woman. It still is. I don't care what you say. When you feel used and there's no love, it's painful, and your sense of value spiritually is diminished.
So I'm going to share this with you. My husband says something every once in a while and I had this talk with my son a couple of weeks ago. My son's like 15.
Right.
And this is what my husband says. Women need a reason. Men just need a place.
You know what? He's right on.
And women So this is the reason they've never been able to come up with a Viagra for women because, right? Because we are emotionally involved with the sexual process,
Right.
and so women need intimacy, and the men don't necessarily need it, and so the conquest is more of the fulfilling thing, I think, for the masculine.
Or we're not sleeping pills.
And
we are not sleeping
we're
pills.
not sleeping pills.
Hello, we're not sleeping pills.
Women have to escape the cave while they can. Right?
Well, it changes when we get older too, because of course our hormones are raging. You know, it's all natural when you're younger, and then that changes. And so he's right. Especially when we're older, you need the reason then, and you need that intimacy, you know, and it changes. But it's important, I think, to open the dialogue, because right now the dialogue is so dark when it comes in everywhere. It's just the sex trafficking and the children and blah, blah, blah. And it's just horrible, dark. We need to bring light to this beautiful gift that God gave us of communication with intimacy and spiritually, because when you have that, you go into, you're not even part of this world. You're just, and I'm so fortunate to have that. And Victoria Pearl, she had that with Robert, and of course, Robert's my cowboy.
Oh,
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
So there was the other question I wanted to ask you, talking about the real Wild West.
Oh, yes.
One of the things that you told me, I had no idea, that in the real Wild West, the women were the ones that had the money, and the women were the ones that had the control.
Well,
So,
actually,
right?
no, exactly.
Or something like that.
No, my husband always says it's not fair. Women, let's see if I can say this in a clean way. He says in the later years, women have possession of 70% of the money. No, he says women have control of 70% of the money, and we have control of all of the saying yes. He used the P word, but we won't say that word. But he said you have control of always saying yes.
Right.
And
then in control of always saying no too.
Yeah,
right?
and saying no.
That's why I was saying the women had the money, and women also had the control.
Exactly.
Well, and didn't women had the brothels, and men had to pay for the service provided by the brothels.
Exactly.
Women had the stores.
Exactly.
The place where people go shopping. The women who worked in the brothels, right, are the ones that had the money to open the shops that people went shopping at. Women kind of ran the banks too, didn't they? If men needed money, they would borrow money from the women that worked in the brothels, or not the brothels, but the.
I will say
matrons.
this. Yeah, I will say the women in brothels, not regular women, you know, but just
the women in the gentlemen's clubs.
in the gentlemen club, in the brothels. They owned land. They had money. They and some of them didn't treat their girls right. Some of them were horrible with
some
the
of them
girls.
treated their girls like prostitutes. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So they were fighting two battles there. A lot of girls didn't live past their late 20s because of in that. I mean, it was very, very common for girls to die of drug lithium. I think that's the name of it. The drugs.
Oh yeah, the drugs were not regulated at all. Yeah.
No, they were doing opium and drugs to be able to tolerate their lifestyle, you know, and the men were not friendly. They used them. They knew that, you know, so the Everleigh House was quite the exception.
So that's kind of the difference between a gentleman's club and a saloon, kind of.
Well, here's the thing, you know, even today, somebody told me the other day, they were approached by a prostitute at a beautiful hotel. And she just walked up and said, "Would you like a date?" And he said, "What's that?" And so he kind of figured out what was going on. $2,000.
So a professional call girl.
$2,000 in today's world. Okay. So we all think that when we pay more, we get better quality.
Right.
And it's the same mentality as the Everlays used. The same mentality. And which I think is really interesting. But more importantly, you and I talked about money being energy. She sees herself as having that kind of value. Is she doing anything different than the $20? Maybe
the girl
not.
who's standing on the street.
Yeah, maybe, probably not. Not really. But she's dressed differently. She smells nice. She's clean, and she says, "I'm $2,000.
I'm a businesswoman.
I'm a businesswoman. I know what you want, and I can give you that, and it's going to cost you $2,000." And men with money will pay that.
Wow.
And for her, it's totally consensual.
Right.
She's willing to exchange money for
service.
So at least there's energy exchange. When it comes to this trafficking and all of this other stuff, I'm not talking about morally. I'm talking about, with an exchange of energy, there's no expectation. But these girls, they wonder why they had this wonderful time with this boy, and then all of a sudden, and the phone's not ringing.
Right.
They're not calling them back. They've moved on.
Right.
And that's what's happening in today's world with our girls, with our teenagers, everybody. We need to they need to know that they have value. They need to know they have value. Did I say value?
You said value.
Yeah.
You know what I keep hearing is I'm going back to the 80s, the wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And that's kind of it, right? And
no consideration of her needs. And unfortunately, a lot of women don't even know. I mean, I think girls are way more educated than we were,
Oh, for sure.
But,
yeah.
I remember with my son, I told him, I said, when he was a teenager, I said, "Jordan, let me just tell you something. Don't you ever climb on and off anybody without an invitation. You need to get them ready. And if you want the best experience, wait for the invitation. Wait for the invitation. Wait and make her ask twice. If she asks twice, you will have the best experience because she's ready."
Right.
And we've all experienced the wham bam, thank you, ma'am.
I just the return of the gentleman would be so nice.
Wouldn't that be nice? But I think it's a very spiritual conversation because we are mind, body, spirit. And we know that in our later years, we're not the hormones aren't raging. We're not wanting to have babies anymore.
Right.
In fact, that's gone.
Oh, yeah. Thank God.
That's gone. Yeah. What we want is intimacy and love and respect. And we need to teach that earlier because fortunately for me with Dennis, my husband, he's given me that throughout our whole marriage is the love and the respect. And we've learned things together. Right. And, I remember when the kids, I'm telling all of them, the whole world can see this. I don't care. It's important.
Well, and intimacy is different for some people than it is for other people. So I'll share with you, my intimacy is really good conversation.
Yeah.
Right. That just is my,
and
the love languages, that one's mine.
And that's what, what's so funny what you just said. I love that you said this because I remember I went to the club with my daughters. They said, "Come on, Mom, come on, and it's all these young people and there's this kind of music here and this kind of music here and this kind of music here." I found a piano player and I went because the place had like 4 different kinds of music on. It's a huge place. And this kid, and I was listening to this piano player just play and sing because that's my thing. I don't need all that boom, boom, boom stuff, at one time, but not now.
Right.
And this kid came and sat next to me and he said, "Do you like the Beatles?" And I said, "I love the Beatles." And he says, "My mom loves the Beatles." And I thought, wow, this is a different conversation I used to have in bars, right?
Yeah,
exactly. So he said, "Who's your favorite Beatle?" And I went, Oh my gosh.
How old was this kid?
Oh, he was just, and this was a few years ago. I mean, this is when we were in Tennessee. He was just a kid, my daughter's age,
Okay.
right? And, you know, I'm a mom, you know, and he said, "Who's your favorite Beatle?" And I said, well, when I was growing up, it was Paul. Everybody went Paul, right? But I said, now it would be John Lennon because I want to have a conversation with him.
Yeah.
And I went, whoa, that's so shifted, you know?
Yeah.
And I told my husband, I said, you know, hey, babe, how about it? We're done with all that stuff. You know, when we went to empty nesting,
Mm-hmm.
I said, now you just say, can I run you a bath? Yeah. Or I'll say, hey, why don't you run me a bath? And that's our little signal.
Okay.
Our little signal, you know, and run me a bath. Oh, we want to run a bath. So things can change because that turns into bubbles and candles and backwashing and beautiful, clean, and music and big old sheepskin rug on the bed, you know, all of these things.
And this is what we would call foreplay.
Yeah.
For men who don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's actually what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And then because it's all in the anticipation, because again, when the spear gets sprung, you lose control.
Right.
It's all gone. Bye-bye. And it's not that men don't want to. They don't know. They need to be educated.
Well, I don't know. It's too much work for some guys. I mean,
yeah,
I admit that. I've heard people say this is way too much work.
But then I'm going to tell you.
But you get the end result, so maybe it's not way too much work if you know what you're working toward.
Okay, so I started a survey, Victoria.
Okay.
I started asking women. I said, "Have you ever faked it?"
That's like 90%. I don't know. It's like.
I think the only one that said no didn't know what I was talking about. They all said yes. But you know, it's not their fault. They think, you know, the conquest, and boy, did she have a good time, right? Because right.
Oh, so it's the Harry Met Sally scene,
yes!
Right? Where she's in the restaurant,
yes,
doing a complete fake.
It's not their fault. That's called enabling. Enabling, yes, it's called enabling, because you make them think that they're Superman and you just are tired, you know.
I've never thought of it in that particular arena, because we think of it in like
I'm done.
Other kinds of codependent relationships.
Right, exactly. But
with sex, I'd never even crossed my mind.
So that's why I was telling you exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't, but all the man has to do is say, what can I do for you? What would you like? That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And women need to know themselves well enough to tell them. And they don't need to, you need to, because I remember my son was telling, there's a big round table of women. And he said he was at a fraternity party and they had this big film about how to please a woman. And he said, my buddies were all walking around and said, I don't need to see that film. I know what I'm doing. Right? He said, Mom, I was taking notes. And that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
It's easy. It's so simple, but we have that breakdown in communication.
So you know what else is making me think of? I wasn't even planning. We're actually over. So there's a little timer right there that says how long we've been talking. So we've gone over a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But this is really the enabling thing takes me back to one other conversation. Then we probably should say goodbye because we've been on for so long. But I know from experience and from talking to a lot of women, there are a lot of women out there who are married and who are essentially prostituting themselves.
Wifely duty.
Right. And I just realized that's part of that enabling thing.
Well, one woman told me, she said, I don't want him going anywhere else. That's why most women say I'm tired or, I'm over it or, but this one woman said, I don't want him going somewhere else.
Right.
You're right.
Or I don't feel that intimate connection anymore, but as part of my wifely duty. I mean, and there were a lot of women that were raised with that. That's part of the job. You get married, you have kids, at your wifely duty, you satisfy your husband's needs and he'll take good care of you.
But it doesn't
kind of like an exchange. But on the inside, it feels like prostituting yourself.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be this way. The guys just need an education. Take notes, boys. Take notes. Or men. Take notes.
Yeah, I don't think we have a lot of boys watching this. Well, I mean, they're all boys on the inside, right? It's okay. We love the little boys that are inside of our men. They're very cute and sweet and precious.
Yeah, they are. They are. So in closing, let's just say, gentlemen, ask, wait for the invitation, and you will have an amazing experience.
And I'm just hearing with it. I've never heard it this way before.
Right.
Ask and receive, right?
Oh, yes. The spiritual exchange can be so beautiful. And especially just play and don't even go there to the big whatever. Just feel the heartbeat. Look in the eyes, touch, just beautiful. And then go to, you don't have to go all the way, right?
Right. So, the other thing too, when we were talking earlier, and I actually had this conversation in my previous interview this morning, that there are 4 aspects to the human experience: mind, body, spirit, and heart. And the heart is that the human heart is starting to wake up.
Yes.
So when we take the time to actually have a heart-to-heart connection, there is no there's no race to the finish line.
No, there isn't.
It's about connecting on such a beautiful heart-to-heart, intimate connection.
Right.
That needs to be the priority.
Right.
And if that heart-to-heart connection is there, then it will move.
Right.
And into the physical intimacy. Heart's got to come first.
And it's so beautiful to acknowledge your partner's heart, and have them feeling your heart at the same time. And the breath, I'm kind of going into a tantra thing right now, but the breath, this is life. This is a gift. It's a beautiful, beautiful gift. Beautiful gift. And women have you can have the most amazing experience. Amazing. And people are missing it. They're missing it. And the girls, their sovereignty. Hold back. Hold your mystery. Because when you give it all, you are the bubble gum on the bedpost. Next.
Yeah. And then the other thing, as you were talking about, I think it's time to close out. What I'm continually being reminded of is that, and this is what's frustrating with COVID, and eventually this too shall pass.
Right.
Is when we hug another person, it is actually a heart-to-heart energy exchange.
Yes.
That's why hugs feel so good.
Yes.
And that activates the heart within both beings when we can just be in that hug.
Yes.
That very deep emotional connection that happens heart to heart. And I think that we really need to get back to that. Just get back to really being but I don't know, heart to heart for me is a spiritual intimacy.
Absolutely.
Because spirit is ignited within the heart.
Absolutely.
And get back to that. I think that's part of the awakening and the ascension process that we are collectively in right now, that we're moving out of this, just the mind, body, spirit, which is there too, which to me is the auric field and our connection to source. But the 5D that we're moving into actually is a heart-based reality.
Yes.
So this is all about awakening our hearts and expanding our hearts and having these really heart-to-heart connections. Not to be confused with attachments, different things, and have these really great heart-to-heart connections and allow ourselves to connect heart-to-heart before the mind and the body get involved. How's that?
Yes.
Yes. So I want to thank you for this. I'm so excited I get to spend off camera time with Cindy, because I get to call her Cindy, while she's here in Redondo Beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go off today, and I'm treating myself to a Mother's Day gift, celebrating myself as the mother that I am.
Thank you.
I'm gonna go have a pampering day after I'm finished here.
So you know what we did today? We talked about things people don't talk about.
I know. No topic is too taboo.
Oh gosh, this has been really fun.
It's been really fun.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And thank you all for being here and for being a part of this story and this experience. And Steve says, I'm channeling my little boy. Steve has a great little boy in him. He's really fun.
Oh, okay. Good.
So some of my biggest fans, some of my biggest friends are here.
Hi, friends. Hi, friends.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for joining this live show of Fearless and Free TV. And before we head out, as always, two things. Shine your light so high so that others can't help but see their own light.
Yes.
And remember to get bold, be fearless, and live free.
Live free.
Mwah.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Victoria.